You know, in a world of high-stakes influence, power isn't always the loudest thing in the room. It isn't always even visible. Sometimes the most dominant force is the one making no noise at all. Today, we're taking apart an invisible system of influence, a kind of blueprint for control that operates entirely in silence. This is the architecture of passive control.
This quote, it hits on a really powerful paradox, doesn't it? We're all taught to think that dominance is about action, about speaking first, getting the last word, taking up space. But this points to something deeper, something way more potent. It's a form of control that's rooted not in doing something, but in strategically doing nothing. It suggests that the real power is in your ability to just endure the silence, to use that absence as a tool.
So that brings us to the big question, right? How is silence actually a weapon? I mean, we're not talking about just being quiet or introverted. We're talking about the deliberate, strategic use of stillness to engineer a specific outcome in other people. We are going to deconstruct this invisible system, piece by painful piece. And this is the core concept we're dealing with, passive control. See, it's a system that doesn't attack you head-on. No, it's much smarter than that. It actually turns your own biology, your fundamental human need for social connection and feedback. It turns that need into a lever that can be used to compromise your personal sovereignty. You know, your ability to think clearly, to act on your own, to hold your own authority. The stakes here, they're incredibly high.
Okay, so here's our game plan for breaking this down. First, we'll look at the weight of the void, what silence actually does to our brains. Then we'll meet a familiar character, the high-performing petitioner. After that, we'll map out the architecture of the silent seas. Then we'll dive into the psychology of surrender. Next, we'll learn how to diagnose the silence trap. And finally, we'll get to the countermove, owning your own pace.
So, let's start with the absolute foundation, the thing that gives silence all its power. It's not just an absence of sound, it's a presence. It has this, you could call it a neurological gravity. It literally pulls on us in a very real, very biological way.
And what's wild is that this is all coming from a super primitive, deeply ingrained survival instinct. I mean, for thousands of years, being excluded from the group meant death. So when someone we see as important, a boss, a leader, whoever, goes completely quiet on us, our brain doesn't just notice a pause. It can actually interpret that silence as a threat, as a form of social rejection that feels like a physical wound. This isn't some kind of weakness, it's literally a feature of our social biology. So, okay, how does this abstract idea actually play out in the real world? Let's look at a pattern that I'm willing to bet a lot of you have seen or maybe even been a part of. We're going to call it the high-performing petitioner.
Just picture this. You've got an expert, someone who's at the top of their game, presenting mission-critical information. They're clear, they're on point, their data is solid. But the person they're talking to, the one with the power, is giving them absolutely nothing back. Just a neutral, unreadable stare. It's this moment of sudden erasure. And in that pocket of absolute stillness, the entire dynamic of the room starts to bend and warp.
So the first thing that happens to that expert is what we call induced analytical panic. Because they're not getting any of the normal feedback, their brain just starts to short circuit. The focus flips. It's no longer about the quality of their data. It's all about, what are they thinking? Do they hate this? Am I messing up? Their deep human need for validation starts to scream louder than their own expertise. It's like being in cognitive freefall.
And if this pattern keeps going, oh man, the long-term damage is just devastating. It's called sovereignty atrophy. To try and get any kind of response, the expert starts over-explaining, filling every single silence. Their best qualities, being diligent, helpful, a great communicator, those very things get weaponized against them. It makes them seem less confident, less in charge, and in the end, totally disposable.
Okay, so let's get under the hood and see how this becomes a deliberate system. We're getting into the core diagnostics now. This isn't happening by accident, it's an engineered process. We're going to look at the step-by-step mechanics of how passive control is built.
The whole system works on a 4-stage loop. Step 1, recognition, withholding. That's where they deny you the normal social cues you expect. Step 2 is temporal braking, the strategic slowing of time itself. Step 3 is selective re-engagement, where you only get rewarded for giving up. And it all leads to the final stage, Step 4, a sovereign monopoly, where they have total authority over the room. Let's break each one down.
Step 1 is recognition withholding. The person in control figures out the little social rewards you run on.
a quick nod, an I agree, a simple thank you. And then they deliberately take them away. This creates a conflict in your brain's error detection center, a part called the anterior cingulate cortex. Just think of it as your brain's, wait, something's not right here, alarm. It's searching for a pattern it can't find, and that sets off a low-grade panic. And in doing this, they're basically creating a map of your need for feedback, identifying it as the exact vulnerability they're going to exploit.
Now, for the next move, and this one is subtle but so powerful, temporal braking. The controller just slows everything down. They take longer to answer. They move more slowly. Their speech is more deliberate. Now, this isn't just about being calm. It's a strategic move that sends a powerful signal. I am so unthreatened by this situation that I can control the very rhythm of this room.
And this is where it gets crazy, because this triggers a biological phenomenon called autonomic entrainment. See, our nervous systems are literally designed to sync up with people around us. So when one person stays super calm and slows their pace, the heart rates, the breathing, even the speech patterns of everyone else in the room will involuntarily start to match them. At a biological level, you are being put into a subordinate role, and not a single word has to be spoken.
So once your biology is hooked, the controller moves to step 3, selective re-engagement. All of a sudden, they give you that warmth you've been starving for, but only at one very specific moment, the exact moment you give up, the moment you surrender your idea. This creates a powerful relief anchor in your brain. You start to associate that amazing feeling of safety with the act of giving in. It's a classic conditioning loop that trains you to submit, to just erase your own presence to avoid feeling that cold silence again.
And here's the end game of that entire loop. It culminates in a sovereign monopoly. The power dynamic in the room has been completely rewired. Decisions are not made based on who has the best plan or the best data anymore. No. All authority has shifted to the person who can simply wait the longest, the one who controls the pace. They've become the unquestioned center of gravity.
So we've seen how the system works, but now we have to ask why. Why does it work so well, even on really smart, data-driven people? Well, the answer is buried in some deep-seated mental shortcuts our brains use to save energy.
Think about it like this. When we run into a loud peer, someone who's always talking, always pushing their ideas, our brain kind of sees them as trying too hard. It actually costs us more mental energy to listen to them. But the quiet master, by contrast, is often seen as wiser, more powerful. Our brain takes a shortcut, a heuristic, and just assumes their silence means they have some deep confidence, even if there's zero evidence to back that up. And this shortcut actually has a name, the heuristic of silence. It's like a pre-installed assumption in our brains that automatically equates a lack of noise with a presence of power. But here's where it gets even trickier. This is amplified by something called the Zeigarnik Effect, which is our brain's tendency to remember unfinished things way better than finished things. When someone withholds feedback from you, it creates an open loop in your mind. You become obsessed with closing it, which means you become psychologically fixated on the person who's withholding, giving them an enormous amount of your mental real estate totally for free.
Okay, so we get the architecture, we get the psychology. Now let's shift gears from just explaining it to actually applying it. How can you diagnose this dynamic when it's happening? How do you spot the signature of the silence trap in your own life?
The number one red flag, the primary indicator, is something called the effort engagement disconnection. It's a pretty simple audit, really. You just look at the amount of social and intellectual work you're putting into a conversation versus the amount of feedback or engagement you're getting back. If there is a massive imbalance there, you might just be in a silence trap.
And this table here, it just maps it out perfectly. Look at the first column. The petitioner's labor is through the roof. They're filling silence, over-explaining, seeking validation, speeding up. Now compare that to the second column, the passive node's response, basically nothing. A neutral face, delayed answers, withholding feedback, a slow pace. And what's the result? In the third column, exactly what we talked about. Induced analytical panic, sovereignty atrophy, and autonomic entrainment. It's a clear diagnostic footprint.
And all of this leads to the central and frankly, the tragic irony of this whole situation. The petitioner's paradox. The person who is doing all the work, the one carrying the entire social and logistical weight of the project, is often the only one too caught up in the system-generated anxiety to even see that they're being used.
So, all of this brings us to the end. We've diagnosed the trap, so how do we dismantle it? The answer isn't about fighting back or trying to be louder. It's not about playing their game. It's about fundamentally taking back the very thing they used to control you in the first place, the pace.
This is the strategic reversal. This is how you flip the script. All the power of the passive controller comes from their ability to endure silence. So, to neutralize that power, you have to develop the exact same capacity. You have to start reframing that unfilled air, not as an awkward void you have to fill, but as a strategic space to think. It's about getting comfortable in that silence, letting your own nervous system calm down, and giving yourself the room to think clearly, outside of their influence.
And that's really the key, isn't it? The entire architecture of passive control depends on you being unaware of the mechanics. It's like a magic trick. It only works if you don't know how it's done. The moment you become aware, the moment you can see and name the tactics as they happen, that's recognition withholding, or, okay, they're using a temporal brake. The system loses its invisible grip on your biology. Awareness isn't just knowledge. It's a real-time defense. It's the antidote.
And so we end on this final strategic command. The next time you feel that deep neurological pull to fill a silence, to over-explain, to speed up because someone else is disengaged, recognize it. Recognize it for what it is. It's the system working on you. The real power play is to resist that pull, to hold your ground, to stop filling the void and start deliberately owning your own pace. The question is, can you endure the silence long enough to take back your own sovereignty?